What's up, Valley Creek students? Welcome to Student Circles. We are in a series called A Different Way, Do What Jesus Did. And this series has been incredible. We have been talking about how there is a different way, a better way to live than what the world has to offer. It's the way of Jesus. And so, we have been diving deep and asking the big questions. And this week, we asked the question, can you change? And if so, how do you change? And what does that look like? Well, let's check this out.
Is it possible for you to change? Can you go deeper? Can you become more mature? Can you become free? Can you become healthy? Can you be transformed? Is it possible for you in your life to actually change? Or do you think, this is just who I am? This is just kind of how I do my life. This is as good as it gets. I've tried, I've struggled, I've strived, I've put in the effort, I've had the willpower, I've done all of the things and I've not changed. And so many of us have just kind of resigned to this is just my life. And I've learned to numb and I've learned to cope. And I've got strategies for dealing with the brokenness in my life. And sometimes I have really good seasons where I can put the dogs at bay. But if I'm honest, no, I don't really think that I can change. In fact, if I'm going to change, then God's got to kind of lightning bolt strike me. Or maybe some of us think, I don't know that I even really want to change. And some of us probably think the reason I can't change is because I'm a victim to everyone else in my life. And if they would change, then I could change. Can you change? I don't think we think about that question a lot. And I think if we're honest, somewhere deep down inside of us, subconsciously, most of us believe no. Why? Because we have brought our theology down to the experiences we've had in life. Our beliefs have been determined by what we've actually experienced. And for a lot of us, we would say, I haven't changed, and therefore it's not possible to change. You see, I think if we're honest, a lot of us feel like the Apostle Paul. He says, I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. I know that nothing good lives in me, that is in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now, if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it. For in my inner being, I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in the members of my body, waging war against the law of my mind and making me a prisoner of the law of sin at work within my members. Who will rescue me from this body of death? How authentic, how vulnerable, how honest, and how real. Did you ever feel like this? Does this feel like your life? The things that you want to do, you can't do? And the things you don't want to do, you find yourself just doing over and over and over again? What is Paul saying here? He's saying, hey, the things I really want to do, I can't do them. And the things I don't want to do, I find myself doing them, even when I'm trying not to do them. And what he's expressing to us is that he has lived in the world for so long that he's been trained and conditioned by the world, so he naturally does the things the world does. We've been saying you got to do what Jesus did if you want to do what Jesus did. Well, Paul is saying, I have done what the world has done for so long that I naturally and effortlessly do what the world does. I have these habits, these routines, these ruts, these neural pathways, these whole ways of life that I have created that just kind of take over on the spot. I've spent so long doing what the world has done that I just naturally and effortlessly in the moment do what the world does. It's not what I want to do. It's not even who I am anymore. I'm a new creation. I'm part of the divine nature. The sin nature has been broken on my life, but there's this sin living in me, in the members or the actual parts of my body that has made me a prisoner to the sin that is in a sense trapped or trained in the parts of my body to make me do things that I don't want to do. So I've been trained. I've been trained by the world, and that's why I naturally and effortlessly do what the world does on the spot. This is why we do things like we say, I'm not going to be angry, I'm not going to be angry, I'm not going to be angry. We get to the spot, we're angry, and we can't help it. This is why we say things like, I'm not going to look at it, I'm not going to look at it, I'm not going to look at it. And we look at it. So we say things like, I'm not going to be controlling. Okay, today's the day. I'm not going to be controlling today, this hour. I'm not going to be controlling. And we control. I'm going to serve. I'm going to be a servant. I'm going to go into that situation with my family, and I'm not going to be selfish. I'm going to serve, and we step into it, and we're selfish. Why? Because we've spent so long doing what the world has done that we naturally and effortlessly do what the world does on the spot, in the moment. We have been trained. We have been conditioned. We have ruts. We have habits. We have routines. We have whole patterns of our life that make us do things that we don't want to do, or prevent us from doing the things that we do want to do. What I'm trying to tell you is that your will is not stronger than your training. That's what he says. My will is not to do it or to do this thing and not that thing. But my willpower is not stronger than the training I've experienced. So in the moment when I get to a fork in the road, I will take whichever rut is most deep in my life. And when it's been the things of the world, those ruts that I have created over time, I just naturally and effortlessly take them. Is this making sense to you? He's saying there is literally sin that is in the members or the parts of my body. I have literally been trained in this world to do and say certain things and not do and not say other things, that on the spot, even though my will, my heart is to go God's way, I've been trained the world's way, and I can't have the willpower strong enough to override my training. It's like sin has been trapped in the members of your body, your body parts, your hands, your feet, your words, your facial expressions, your ears. All of that has been trained in the ways of this world. Does that make sense to you? It's like you get to this fork in the road and you've been trained so deeply to be depressed that you can't even be joyful. You get to the fork in the road and you've been trained so deeply to be bitter and resentful that it's almost impossible for you to be forgiving in the moment. You've been trained so deeply to be a person of control that you get to that moment and you you can't trust God because the ruts are so deep and they take you in the direction that you don't want to go. We've been trained to hide, to hoard, to hate, to steal, to kill, to destroy. The lust of the eyes, the cravings of the flesh, and the pride of life. And so if we want new ruts, if we want new directions in our life, we've got to build new ruts that are deeper than the old ruts, because your body has been trained to take you in the direction you don't want to go. That's what I'm trying to say to you. And we think of the body and we think we don't really want to talk about the body in church. Like, we're not here to talk about our bodies. We're here to talk about our hearts and our souls and our spirits. But God gave you your body. And your body is you. And inside your body, God has put the creativity of the human spirit. And it's at the place of your body where heaven touches earth. Your body is meant to be God's will on this earth. There's so many verses about the body. Offer your body as living sacrifices. The Lord is for the body and the body for the Lord. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Your body is now the body of Christ on this earth. Like, God has given you a body. And the reason he's given you a body is that you might become his person on this earth, walking in loving relationship with him, accomplishing his will as you rule and reign. He's given you a body. This is the place that you rule and reign. He's given you the authority to choose what happens, how you speak and how you act. It is the place where God has allowed you to have your will, and he won't override it. He won't usurp it. But what we have to acknowledge is that our bodies have been trained we have done the things the world does for so long that our bodies naturally and effortlessly do the things the world does when we get to the spot. So the words and the actions of our body are the world's words and actions, because we've done the things the world has done. So we do the things the world does, and we get so discouraged as followers of Jesus because we've done the things the world has done, and then we just want to be able to jump over here and do the things that Jesus does. But my body hasn't been trained for that. So it naturally takes the ruts and takes me in a direction that I don't want to go. Is this making sense to you? And so this is why he says, train yourself to be godly. Don't try to be godly. Don't use your willpower to be godly. Train yourself to be godly because you have been so deeply trained to be worldly. And your will doesn't have enough power to override your training. Think of how your hands have been trained in this world to take instead of give. Think of how your tongue has been trained to curse instead of bless. Think of how your eyes have been trained to lust and covet instead of look with compassion and love. Think of how your ears have been trained to listen to gossip and slander and division instead of the voice of God. Think of how your mind has been trained to complain, to criticize, to judge, to look at what's wrong instead of being trained to focus on what is good and true and right. Think about how your feet have been trained to run away from God instead of running the race with perseverance that's been marked out for you. Think of how your gut has been trained to hunger and thirst for the things of this world instead of being trained to hunger and thirst for righteousness. Think of how your feelings have been trained to feel condemnation and shame and apathy instead of being trained to feel peace and joy and passion. Think of how your heart has been trained to be wicked and deceitful and selfish instead of being trained to be honest and humble and servant-hearted and vulnerable. And you say, if I do the things I don't want to do and don't do the things I do, do I just abdicate then? That's just who I am. There's no responsibility. No. What he's saying is you take responsibility to acknowledge that reality, confess it before God, and then start a new training program. A new training program to be godly. And we wake up one day and we realize I don't have to do this, but I can't not do it right now because I don't have the willpower to override my training, but I can train differently. And I can train to be godly, and I can train to go in a different way. And then you start realizing this says train yourself to be godly, not train yourself so that you're not worldly. Big difference. A lot of us end up with a vision for our lives that's in reaction to who we don't want to be. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my mom. I don't want to be like those people. Listen to me. If you have a vision for your life that's who you don't want to be because you're afraid of becoming that, just understand fear attracts that which it's afraid of. So the moment my life is I'm training so I won't be worldly or won't be like my mom or won't be like my dad, it literally is attracting that thing into your life as opposed to having a faith of who I do want to be, because faith attracts that which it hopes for. And we don't just try to weed the bad things in our life. We've got to plant the good things in our life, seeds of righteousness, and they will grow and eventually overshadow and choke out the old ways of life as we build new ruts that take us in new ways. Dallas Willard, the great theologian, has helped me tremendously understand this, and he has such a profound grasp on it. And he says that if you ever want to know how people change, there's three components. He calls it VIM: vision, intent, and means. That if people want to actually change, you have to have vision, you have to have intent, and you have to have means. You say, what does that mean? Well, if I want to change in any area of my life, I have to have a vision. I have to see what can be in the midst of what is. I have to have a preferred future. I have to have an alternative reality. I have to see something that's really good and really captivating and grabs a hold of me. Then I actually have intent. I have to be determined. I have to be focused. I have to be eager and earnest, fully committed, regardless of the cost. It's like I intend to become that no matter what it takes of me. But then I need means. I need next steps and opportunities and education and training and teaching pathways to be able to move forward. Could it just be that the reason a lot of us don't experience change in our walk with Jesus is because we don't have a vision to be his disciple and to live in his kingdom? Therefore, we never intend to actually do it. Become determined, eager, earnest, committed, regardless of the cost. So it doesn't matter that there are so many means available to become that kind of person, because we don't have a vision for it, nor do we have the intent. I mean, I want you to think about our church. Do you know how much vision and means there are? And what I've learned over the years is I have no ability to move your intent. Nor does anyone else. Because your intent is in your body that God has given you rule and reign over, and you get to decide what you intend to do. And when we use the word intent, I'm not talking about like a New Year's resolution, like, oh, I intended to get healthy this year, I just haven't got around to it. Or I intended to get the groceries on the way home, but I just didn't really want to do it. Intent is eagerness, earnestness, devotion, commitment with all my heart. And here's the problem. This will be so helpful for some of you. When you don't have a vision to become and you have no intent to really pursue it, you will become critical of the means. This is American Christianity. We don't have a vision to live life in the kingdom. We have no intent to do it. So what do? We complain about the means. Because we're not changing, and so it's got to be someone else's fault. Like, why do we do circles? Can't we do Bible studies? And why do we do the student ministry with these movement nights and circle things? Like, when I was a kid, we did youth group, and that was great. Why can't we do that? And why do we do these songs? Why can't we do the hymns? Those were my favorite back in the day. And why are we doing this different way series again? I don't know. John just seems a little off. It's not my favorite series. There's got to be something else. And reading through the New Testament again, like, didn't we just do that last year? Like, why on earth would I reread that this year? Like, at least give us the Old Testament. The problem is not the means. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So you can complain about the means all day long in any area of your life. It's not the means. There are more means available to do anything you want to do in human history, more than any other time in human history. Anything, from play the piano, to learn Arabic, to become a person who lives in the kingdom of God. It's all there.
Come on, students, there's a different way to live that Jesus offers us. He invites us to come and follow him so that he can help us change from the inside out. The question is, do we have the intent to change? Jesus gives us a vision for our life unlike any other, so may we hunger and thirst for a different way so that we can become all that Jesus has for us. What does this look like in our lives? Let's turn to our circles and let's talk about it.